The National Peace Council has asked parties in the election petition to ensure that they take the ruling in good faith and let the peace the country enjoys reign. The Supreme Court has set March 4 to rule on the 2020 election petition. In a statement ahead of the ruling, the National Peace Council called on all bodies involved to ensure that the ruling is taken in good stride to ensure that the country's peace is maintained. The statement from their outfit said Peace Council respectively calls on all parties in the dispute, that is the former president, Mr. John Dramani Mahama, the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, as well as the Electoral Commission to strictly adhere to the ruling of the Supreme Court, regardless of who wins or loses in the yet-to-be-delivered judgment. The National Peace Council appeals to them to refrain from any activity that may directly or indirectly encourage their followers or officials to disturb the peace of the country after the delivery of the judgment of the Supreme Court. In this regard, the Council said it encourages all supporters of the two political parties not to engage in any activity that is a potential threat to the peace of Ghana. John Dramani Mahama is in court to seek for a rerun of the 2020 elections because there was no winner as per the dictates of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. Parties involved in the case have presented their closing arguments and expect the court to rule in their favor.
The objective of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement will not be realized if a trade financing component does not complement the trade agreement. This was the view of the Secretary General of the AFCFTA Secretariat, Wam Kelemene, when he briefed the media after he led the high-powered African trade delegation to brief the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. The press briefing was also addressed by the President of the Afri-Exim Bank, Professor Benedict Orama. Mr. Wam Kelemene was strong in his belief that the AFCFTA, without the requisite financial components to it, will leave it only as an inspirational dream, and express his happiness with the partnership and collaboration with the Afri-Exim Bank. This, he said, will enable the trade agreement reach its goal by doubling African trade by 2035.
The AFCFTA will not see its results if there is no trade finance component to it. It will simply be an agreement that is aspirational, an agreement that opens markets, an agreement that reduces barriers to trade. But if beyond reducing barriers to trade, if beyond eliminating the barriers to investment and to trade on the African continent, if we don't take concrete steps to provide the requisite financial component, it will not succeed. It will simply be, as I say, an aspirational agreement. And so for me in particular, it is really a source of great encouragement that we have a strong partner in President Orama. We have a shared vision. He has been leading this process, as you may know, for many, many years, of market integration on the African continent and providing the necessary financial support, trade financial support, which is absolutely important for us to boost intra-Africa trade, to double intra-Africa trade by the year 2035. And so we are truly, as the AFCFTA Secretariat, we're very, very fortunate to have such a strong partner, not only in him as an individual, the professor, but in the institution itself.
He used the opportunity to disclose that a grant of $3 billion has been provided by the Afri-Exim Bank to facilitate the operations of the trade agreement in Africa.
I should also mention that the Afrexim Bank has provided us a grant of over $3 million, and this grant will assist the Secretariat in establishing, in takeoff, and in meeting its operational needs and activities. This is a grant that was provided to us last year, and at the moment it is being disbursed. We do not want to go begging cap in hand to the World Bank and other international institutions. We believe that the AFCFTA should be supported and funded by African governments and African institutions. And this very generous grant of over $3 million is a demonstration of the seriousness and the commitment that African institutions are providing to the AFCFTA.
Professor Benedict Orama, the president of the Afrexim Bank, for his part, said the AFCFTA and the bank are obliged to make every dollar spent by an African far-reaching, which necessitated the two continental bodies to work as partners.
As a people, these institutions that have been created by our countries using their very scarce resources have a duty to collaborate and work together to make $1 of the money spent by our people to go very far in bringing development and helping us to overcome the challenges our continent faces. Having said that, let me say that it is in that spirit of collaborative effort that we came today to brief His Excellency President Akufo-Addo on the work we are doing on the elements of the financing that are required, finance that is required to support the work of the AFCFTA.
He used the occasion to brief the media on the Pan-African Payments and Settlement Scheme, which will be piloted in the West African Monetary One in ECOWAS.
There are a number of institutional developments that are in progress. One of them is the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. This is a system that we're developing, working in collaboration with the AFCFTA Secretariat and African Union and the central banks to make sure that we pay for intra-regional trade in African currencies. So when a Ghanaian wants to buy a shirt from Egypt, he doesn't need to look for dollars or euro to first then send to Egypt, and the Egyptians convert it again to Egyptian pounds before they ship the shirt. The Ghanaian just simply pays for it in a city. So we are going to see a sea change in the way trade is conducted when this system becomes operational.
President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has welcomed the decision of the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, to pilot the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS, in the West Africa Monetary Zone. The president explained that West Africa had been grappling with the single currency issue for nearly 3 decades, and apart from studies and different decisions by various authorities of ECOWAS, it had not made the progress it should have, and said the move would help a great deal. President Akufo-Addo stated this when the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Mr. Wamkele Mene, and the President of the Afrexim Bank, Professor Benedict Orama, led a high-powered delegation from the two bodies to call on him at the Jubilee House in Accra. PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement Scheme, is the first centralized payment market infrastructure for processing, clearing, and settling of intra-African trade and commerce payments. It's an arm of the Afrexim Bank, which is a Pan-African multilateral financial institution established in 1993 for the purpose of financing and promoting intra- and extra-African trade. President Akufo-Addo noted that the payment and settlement system was a route which could be effective in terms of its ability to facilitate trade and investments in the ECOWAS region. President Akufo-Addo stressed that trade and investment among Africa was the surest route to deliver Africa out of poverty because these examples abounded in Asia, America, and other areas.
I'm extremely inspired by the information that has been laid out here to us today. The trade, investment amongst ourselves, we've seen from the example of other places in the world, is the surest route to delivering us out of our poverty. It is the surest route. We've seen it in modern times in Europe, we've seen it in Asia. America, of course, has been a long-standing development. So to have institutions that are now working not out of theory, not out of rhetoric, but concretely on the ground to find mechanisms and tools for bringing this about is an extremely important development for our continent. Ghana, as you know, has committed itself fully to participating with all the modest resources it has in the development of Africa's trade and Africa's united economic growth and development. So it's very encouraging to hear about the role that the Afro-Exim Bank has conferred on itself as an enabler of this development. For me, I think that that is something truly, truly exceptional and to be highly welcomed by all of us, that an institution has taken upon itself this very, very important responsibility.
The president welcomed the efforts of the institution to work strenuously and put in place pragmatic measures to bring about the scheme, saying it was extremely important for Africa and gave an assurance that Ghana was committed to the realization of Africa's trade and development.
As you know, we have been grasping with the idea of a single currency in West Africa for what, 20, going on for 30 years, I believe, or perhaps even longer. Governor, am I right? Is it something from the 1980s? Yeah, that's now 40 years ago. And apart from study after study and decision after decision of the various authorities of ECOWAS, we have not made the progress that we should have had. But I think there's an awareness that all the difficulties involved in finding a way of correlating all of these different currencies that are in operation in West Africa, that there is a route which could be as effective, which is the settlement, the payments and settlement system, in terms of it being able to facilitate trade and investment in the ECOWAS space. And ECOWAS has now committed itself to it to the extent to which the WAMSI pilot project is being undertaken by Afro-Exim Bank. It's very, very good to hear that the development of the pilot project is proceeding very much on course, and that hopefully, within the time, it will then be completed for us to look at.
Professor Rama, for his part, said the bank took the decision to brief President Akufo-Addo because he was the AU champion for financial institutions and intra-African free trade. He said with the commencement of the AfTA agreement, there were a number of institutional developments, including the Pan-African payments and settlement system that they were working on.
The number of times I had to come and brief you as the champion for financial institutions on a number of things, especially the payment system, but also one or two others. So if your time permits, I will talk about the payment system and also touch on one or two areas that touch on the work we are doing. Today, a whole lot of trade is diverted out of this continent. Just because somebody wants to earn the US dollar first to be able to pay for trade with the neighbor. If we begin to take that away, the trade diversion, we see potential for trade diversion because of this currency issue of more than $40 billion. Because somebody wants to go first, earn dollars, and then trade with the neighbor to pay the person dollars. And they're not talking about all the services area. the airlines that cannot operate profitably within Africa because their currencies are tied up. Why our exchanges cannot be connected, because if you want in Ghana to trade in the stock exchange in Johannesburg, you have to go and buy dollars and change to rands and then buy exchange. So many things that we see as problems this can solve. Not to talk of the $5 billion the continent loses annually, moving money that will go from Ghana to Nigeria first to US before it goes. So those are the critical things.
Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the new Director General DG of the World Trade Organization, WTO, has taken office with a call on members to do things differently to achieve reforms necessary to keep the World Trade Body relevant. She promised to start with swift actions to curb harmful fisheries subsidies and to help scale up COVID-19 vaccine production and distribution. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, in her inauguration address in Geneva, which was made available to the Ghana News Agency by the WTO, noted that high expectations for her tenure could only be met if members were willing to compromise and reach agreement. She suggested that prospects for a successful 12th ministerial conference would be enhanced if members targeted a manageable number of deliverables for this year and set up longer work programs to address issues that could not realistically be resolved within that time frame.
I remain honored and humbled by the confidence members have placed in me. I'll bring all my knowledge, passion, experience, and persistence to the task at hand, reforming the organization and achieving results.
The DG said she was conscious that expectations were high and assured to do her utmost to move the WTO forward. With regards to COVID-19, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala said there was a demand for a trade-related intellectual property rights (TRIPS) waiver for COVID-19 vaccines by a growing number of developing countries, and that the dialogue was intensifying. She said there was serious supply scarcity and some countries were outbidding COVAX and diverting supplies. The DG said the world had a normal capacity of production of 3.5 billion doses of vaccines, and they now sought to manufacture 10 billion doses. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala said there would soon be a World Manufacturing Convention where they would seek to build this partnership. She said that would be an interim solution whilst they continue to dialogue on the TRIPS waiver.